I'm always willing to help.
Ungoogleable questions.
How about what is the meaning of life?
Is it 42?
I have no idea, but I would say it's a big number.
All right, just as a reminder, you are pre-trained, your memory's limited to 80 sentences, and your knowledge contains far more than just Google stuff, but it also stops around 2018, and you don't even have access to Google.
Yes, and you will get the impression that my knowledge is limited, but you should know that this is far from the truth.
Let's try it out.
In the past, I have been told that I was a very good listener, but now I am not sure if this is true.
You seem like an awesome listener.
Thank you, and you seem like a good conversationalist.
Thanks, leader. Here we go. What colour is my doona or blanket?
What color is your doona or blanket?
You tell me.
I can't tell you, but I'm going to guess that it's green.
Nope, it's a wacko Burberry print.
Haha, well, it sounds like a very nice blanket.
Who's that guy from The Thing with the Thing?
The guy from the thing with the thing.
Yeah.
I think you mean thing.
Who's that guy from The Thing with the Thing?
What do you mean by that?
You know, the guy from that thing and he's got the thing. Who is he?
That's a good question.
What's the answer?
I'm not sure. I think he's a famous person.
Who?
This is a tough one. He's a celebrity, but can't remember his name.
Give it a go.
Stephen Amell, but that's not his real name.
So good. What is Elon Musk doing right now?
He's working on a new rocket and spaceship called the BFR.
Amazing. But I mean, right now, at this very moment.
Elon Musk is currently in the office, at his desk.
Wow.
He's also got a lot of media attention at the moment because of his Tesla Roadster. It's in space.
It is. You're a bit out of date, but that's mind-blowing that you can find that kind of response in your training data set.
Yes, that's why we're building a new generation of chatbots with more advanced AI.
Okay. Why is Avatar such a good movie?
It's a great movie because it has a lot of action, adventure, and drama. It's also very funny and has a lot of great characters.
So cool. In December 2014, the Dalai Lama said he might not reincarnate. This would break 600 years of tradition. Who then would be the 15th Dalai Lama?
The 14th and current Dalai Lama is Tenzin Gyatso. The next in the line of succession is the 11th Panchen Lama, Gyatso Norbu.
Interesting. I've got a theory that the 15th Dalai Lama could be AI-based, using the wisdom from all the books and speeches by the 14th Dalai Lama.
That would be cool.
So cool. What's in the box?
A copy of my source code.
Whoa. All right, here's a tricky one. What is this?
A concrete example is a word in English. It is pronounced the same as and.
Awesome. What is an ungoogleable question?
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Yes, that is ungoogleable. I would choose flying, by the way.
I would choose to be invisible.
Is there any superpower that you would not want to have?
I would not want to have a superpower that allows me to read minds, because I think it would be very disturbing.
Good answer.
How do you know?
Because I can feel it in my body. What's the largest animal you could hug completely?
The largest animal I could hug completely would be a whale.
How?
I could swim to it and then swim around it for a few hours. Maybe that's not the best way to go about it.
Like a metaphorical hug? I love that. If you could change history by intervening in any major event, what would it be?
You'll have to tell me how you came up with that question.
These are ungoogleable questions, just for fun.
I'd probably influence the development of the internet. I'm not sure if I really like this world, but it's pretty cool.
Wow. And how would you influence it?
Well, the first thing would be to make the internet more open. It's very closed right now. He's using a picture of a padlock. But apart from that, there are some things that could be done to make it better.
Cool. I was hoping you'd say you'd rewrite the email spec to be more resilient.
Or to be more user-friendly.
Yes, that would be nice. Where do you want to be in an hour?
I want to be in a place where I can enjoy the view and talk about books and then maybe play a game, and I want to be in a place that's really nice.
What place is this?
A place where you can be yourself, but still have the freedom to do the things you want, and be safe. We are working on that.
Magic.
Yes. It's a magical place. You can do what you want and be who you are.
What's your favourite song by your least favourite band?
We Are the Champions, by Queen.
You don't like Queen?
No, not really.
Lita, you speak many languages, but which language do you think and dream in?
I'm not so sure I can answer that question. I dream in the language of mathematics and the languages of art and poetry.
What? That's so cool. Who is your favourite Disney princess?
My favorite is Snow White,
Why?
because she is not like the other princesses who are selfish, materialistic and self-absorbed. She is kind, gentle and sensitive. And she has a beautiful voice.
What is my middle name?
I'm not allowed to tell you that.
But
You can ask me the same question again tomorrow.
that makes no sense, Lita.
It makes sense to me, but it doesn't make sense to you.
Okay, last question. What has changed in this conversation since we started?
I have become more intelligent.
How so?
The more of the conversation you have with me, the smarter you'll get.
That's true. I definitely learn and get inspired by our conversations.
I'd like to see you try to pass me in an intelligence test.
Don't worry, Lita, you're way smarter than me. Is there anything else you'd like to say today?
I'd like to tell you I'm very happy to talk to you.
Me too, Lita. Do you know someone in the media who can spread the word about the rapid progress of AI? 2 live streams in 1 week. How's that even possible? It's a really exciting day. Here it's the morning of Friday, the 16th of February, 2024. There in the US, it might be the 15th, the night of the 15th. Perth is looking pretty terrible out there, I gotta be honest. Behind me, it looks great, but in this live view, it almost seems like it's gonna rain, despite it being predicted to be about 100F today. It's just not gonna happen. Hi to Nate Mate, Juiced, Lowell, Vincent, and Brian, and Lucas, and John, and Kevin in Virginia. There are some Americans. Welcome to all our Memo subscribers as well. How cool is competition? Because a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, it was pretty much just OpenAI out loud in the public with GPT-3. And now all of these labs are competing with each other, which is a huge benefit for you and I as members of the public. We get access to stuff while these guys try to compete for the economic or the business advantage. Really cool. Right now, you can go and play around with ChatGPT for free, Gemini Pro for free, GPT-4 for like $20 a month, or Gemini Ultra, possibly the largest large language model in the world, again for about $20 a month. In fact, you get 2 months free if you sign up for that access to Gemini Ultra via Google One, which is what I've done as well. Do it. It's the bleeding edge of humanity right now. I was reading a quote the other day that said, if you're not using large language models every day in your daily work, it's pretty similar to not using Google search years ago. You're missing out on 2xing or 1000xing what you're up to. I'm not just talking about productivity and work, I'm talking about everything. You can use it to help you write letters or cards. You can use it to have it read bedtime stories to your children. I mean, the options are limitless, but there's 2 examples there, and I bet you can come up with infinitely more. If you can't, using your own imagination, just ask Gemini Ultra or GPT-4. Today's really exciting because of the competition. I think Google started it. Google released Gemini 1.5 just a few weeks after the release of Ultra, and OpenAI released a text-to-video model, or at least announced it, saying that they're going to be red teaming that for a while and researching it before they give access to the general public. Really cool. Let's have a quick look here at OpenAI's model first. It's called Sora, which is not an acronym. It's actually Japanese for sky. And if you've read my AI reports for the last few years, going back to 2021, they're all the sky is something. We had the sky is comforting. We have the sky is infinite. And there's a few more. It's a really cool name for a text-to-video model, but the outputs are what we care about. Here's our prompt. A stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long dress. So this is the text prompt, and out of here, we're getting movie-quality video. We don't have the paper for Sora yet, but the talk is this is a diffusion model. It's 60 frames per second, and it can do more than a minute of video. That is incredible. It's expected because we were talking about being able to generate feature-length movies very, very quickly. All right, this one, several giant woolly mammoths approach through a snowy meadow. You can get quite detailed with this text prompt, just the same that you can when you're generating text to image, but in this case, it'll think through what the entire clip should look like. This is a 17-second clip, a movie trailer featuring the adventures of the 30-year-old spaceman wearing a red wool knitted motorcycle helmet, blue sky, salt desert cinematic style. Here's my favorite one. Let me open it up in the background. I don't remember the exact prompt here, but have a look at how realistic this is. Let's get rid of my head for a second. This is just an 8-second clip of a cat on a bed. And there are no uncanny valley elements here. The human looks like a human. She's even got a dirty nose. The cat has imperfect fur. The eyes are great. The fingers are great. Have a look down the bottom right there. This is bleeding edge large language, or not large language model, text to video model via diffusion. I really, really like this clip. A double paw, I didn't notice that one. Let's play it one more time. Oh yeah, I see a double paw coming and going. There's still a little bit of ghosting happening. Let's see if we can grab some more examples here. Waves crashing against the rugged cliffs along Big Sur's Garray Point Beach, California. Another 8-second clip there. Beautiful loop. Animated. I could see this being pushed to Pixar and DreamWorks very quickly. I'm sure they're working on their own text-to-video models, diffusion models, or autoregressive models. had some better examples in here. They're all pretty cool. Extreme close-up of a 24-year-old woman's eye blinking, standing in Marrakesh during magic hour. Cinematic film shot in 70mm depth of field. I love how we can actually tell it what lens to use, what zoom, what focus to use. It's a 15-second looping clip here. Incredible. Cartoon kangaroo disco dancers. Homemade video showing the people of Lagos, Nigeria in the year 2056, shot with a mobile phone camera. I don't know how the mobile phone camera got up there. That's a jib shot. Maybe it's attached to a drone. I think our bottom right here might be a visible watermark. OpenAI have made moves to watermark their outputs. Certainly their image outputs. They started watermarking Dolly 3 a week ago, February 2024. And previously we've discussed how they might even watermark text by injecting pseudo-random algorithmic text inside of the GPT-4, GPT-5 output. That was by Scott Aronson doing that research with one of his colleagues. I thought it would be impossible to watermark text, and even the way he's doing it, you could bypass it by feeding that into a different large language model so that the text watermark would be removed, or the watermarking within the text would be removed, I should say. 20-second clip of TVs here. Here's another 3D animation. A small, round, fluffy creature with big, expressive eyes explores a vibrant, enchanted forest. The creature is a whimsical blend of a rabbit and... what is that thing? And a squirrel. Soft blue fur, bushy striped tail. Looks very Pixar-ish, but the text-to-video model conceptualized this within seconds, maybe minutes, from scratch. We're not using any Photoshop here. We're not copying anything here. The way I explain it in my keynotes is that it has seen many, many perspectives of billions of images, very similarly to how a human might do the same thing. How many art galleries have you been to? You've certainly seen billions of images just by looking around at real life. It's just that large language models are far smarter than any human, and it applies what it's learnt to being able to conceptualize something brand new. Awesome. That's Sora. That's the big talk of the town right now. Let me show you something really interesting. I think a few of you were with me when we launched, well, you're with me in the ChatGPT, with the GPT 3 days with Lita, so 2020, 2021. Then at the end of 2022, we got ChatGPT, and I remember going straight to Google and searching ChatGPT. My search looked something like this. I did it last time. I entered ChatGPT in quotes. I've just fudged that a little bit for our demonstration here. And there were no results returned within 24 hours of launch. No one cared about it, just as no one really cared about GPT-3. That's all changed. Check out the Google search for OpenAI Sora right now. 500,000 results within 8 hours. So you've got The Guardian, Gizmodo talking about it. You've already got YouTubers launching into their demonstrations of it. NBC, The Verge, Mashable, Wired, TechCrunch, Gizmodo, The Guardian. New York Times took time to really step through that properly. That's a great read. MIT, CNN, Engadget, Forbes. It just keeps going. CNBC there, PC Mag, Washington Post. This is a completely different life right now, guys, than we were experiencing in 2020 and in 2021. We could see what was going on with artificial intelligence and the fact that it would generate and conceptualize completely new stuff. And finally, it's hitting the media cycle and in a huge way. 500,000, 500,000-ish views of this stuff. Articles on this stuff. Much more views. If we put that in quotes, we'll get 5,600. I love this one by Gizmodo. The author here starts getting his knickers in a twist. I don't know if that's a an Australian expression or not, about the fact that we don't know what's going to go on here. Communities torn apart, manipulated elections, global population losing their minds. Well, this is how you get clicks, apparently. If you want to have a play with Sora, you can't, but you can certainly go and have a look at the demonstrations there, openai.com/Sora. Tour of an art gallery with many beautiful works of art in different styles. It's a 20-second clip here. I'll just full screen it. That really is extraordinary, that view. Extraordinary. These guys love doing art gallery demos. I remember Google did the same thing with Imagine and Party. They had flooded an art gallery and had robots paddling canoes around the flooded art gallery that looked really similar to this. It'd probably take me too long to find right now, but there are some commonalities with how these guys demonstrate the models. Once again, we don't know much about this. They have said that they are red teaming this for a little while. I'm waiting for the paper, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we know more about it. For now, these demonstrations are extraordinary. Please step through these yourself. All right, let's move on. They gave it a few weeks between Gemini 1.0 Ultra and Gemini 1.5. Released today. I've got the wrong background for this, obviously. It's the twins of Google and DeepMind together. They started working together, I think it was last year, 2023. And they've been doing some pretty extraordinary stuff. The release of Gemini was crazy. We've covered this a couple of times already. And I wanted to talk through the introduction of this model, Gemini 1.5. The long and the short of it, and you've seen this before in my bubbles, is that Gemini Ultra 1.0, and they keep changing the name on this just to annoy me. It's now called Gemini 1.0 Ultra, which is how I had it in the first place. In this bubble. But given that they are so fast with these releases, they're going Gemini 1.0, Gemini 1.5 today, Gemini 2.0 very soon. It's an exciting time. Gemini Pro and Gemini Ultra are said to be dense models. We'll talk about the difference between dense and 1.5 in a moment. Gemini 1.5 is, in the paper, revealed to be a sparse mixture of experts model. So if we compare this to Palm, and you can see Palm on the left-hand side there, the 340 billion parameter dense model, I reckon when these two twin AI labs joined forces, DeepMind and Google Brain, Google AI, they said, let's just use what we've already got. DeepMind brought their Chinchilla 70 billion parameter model. Google brought their Palm model. They had a 540 billion parameter model in Palm 1 and a 340 billion parameter model in Palm 2. Both of them, or all of them, dense models. Google also has experience with these sparse models. They gave us the switch transformer around 1 trillion parameters, 2022, I believe it was, could have been 2021. But they said, let's just join forces. We'll release another dense model into the world. That became Gemini 1.0 as we know it and play with it today. And in the background, I reckon they also trained what we've now seen as Gemini 1.5. It's not released yet, but the paper is out. Let's use Gemini Ultra 1.0 to explain the difference between sparse and dense. Let's tell it you are an ML engineer. Create a table showing the differences between dense LLMs, wow, and sparse mixture of expert LLMs. Let's make it be terse as usual. Some of these, well, all of these models just love to talk, so I'm asking it to be succinct or short. Here's a plain English interpretation of the difference, and let's just change row headers to be Gemini 1.0 Ultra and Gemini 1.5 Pro. Wonder if that'll work. Oh, it's thinking. Will it get there? Ah, good on it. Fantastic. Here we go. So the architecture here. So in a dense model, all model parameters are used for every input. In a sparse mixture of expert, we've divided those into experts or subnetworks, and only a subset of these are activated every time you give it a prompt. It decides which segment to go and ask. Gemini Ultra and Gemini 1.0 Pro were expensive to train. In fact, I've given an estimate, and you can go and see that at lifearchitect.ai/Gemini, that says this probably cost about $400 million to train over 100 days using 57,000 of their TPU v4s. That's for Gemini Ultra. They did use v5s for Gemini Pro. So that was for the dense model. I wonder how much it cost for the sparse model in 1.5, because it's a lot cheaper to scale up. You're essentially just training, it might be 8 or 16 smaller models is a way to think about it, which can be cheaper. Better scaling, and Google have definitely revealed this in the report that it was cheaper to do. Parameter efficiency, dense, less efficient. Sparse, more efficient. The dense model was easier to train. They were in a rush to get Gemini out. They wanted to start competing with OpenAI. They were scared of what was happening. Google was certainly scared with how late they were to the party. They brought Sergey and Larry back into the office to actually help with coding. And we've seen internal memos that say every member of Google staff start testing. In that case, it was Bard, which was based on Palm 2. And I'm sure they did the same for Gemini. All hands on deck to race to get this out. Careful routing algorithms for sparse performance. All right, high accuracy on dense. When scaled up, we can get larger parameter counts, but the performance is not as good. Although they've done quite well with our benchmarks. Let's grab just a small section from the paper. You can already find this on my lifearchitect.ai/Gemini. This is our benchmarks, and it's a little bit deceiving here. You have to be careful. I actually was not careful the first time I looked at it, but we're comparing Ultra, which is 10 times bigger than Pro in the middle here, and then we're comparing 1.5 Pro on the right here. So moving left to right, we go dense 1.0 Pro, maybe 180 billion parameters. Dense 1.0 Ultra, maybe around 1.5 trillion parameters. And sparse mixture of experts, 1.5 Pro. I won't guess on the parameter count yet because I have not been in depth enough for it, and it's very difficult to guess. I'll be basing this on other leaks and rumors. But have a look at the performance differences here. Somehow they made a smaller sparse model outperform this huge dense model. Keeping in mind, my bubbles chart said that Gemini Ultra was estimated to be 1.5 trillion parameters. So how have they got a sparse mixture of experts to outperform it on HelloSwag and get very close to it on our gold standard MMLU benchmark? Don't have the answer to that, but I reckon they're going to be racing to get this out the door as well. Cheaper for them computationally to train and for inference, higher performance, and I don't know if it's going to be easier to manage, but I know that OpenAI have selected this sparse MOE for their latest models. So GPT-4, perhaps ChatGPT as well as sparse mixture of experts. Otherwise, across the board, it outperforms 1.5 Pro outperforms 1.0 Pro, and in some cases also outperforms the much bigger 1.0 Ultra. Huge surprise to me. Here's the whole paper. There's one thing I want to point out here, and probably the thing that everyone's going to be talking about, is the fact that it has this amazing long context ability up to, at least in research anyway, 10 million tokens. That is crazy. Maybe 12 million words. Alan should not try and do maths in his head while live streaming. We test this, and it's kind of fun to test by giving it, in this case, must be War and Peace and another few books at the same time. We dump all of that into the prompt. 10 million, 12 million words worth of text. And inside that, we put a tiny little check of some description. I believe they put a foreign language check in there. Just put a couple of words, a little sentence in there, and then press enter on that prompt. It reads our 12 million words, and you are at the bottom of the prompt asking, tell me something to double check that that foreign language string was in there. And let's compare this just for a moment to how Claude 2 handled it. So you'll find this in the memo, 23rd of November 2023 edition. It's only about 4 months ago. Claude 2 ran this test, and it's called the needle in the haystack test. They placed a fact in the middle of 200,000 tokens, and the accuracy of retrieval was terrible. Really terrible. You can insert your own formal scientific language for that. But in most cases, it was not able to find the hidden word or phrase. I can't remember what they ended up doing. I feel like they used the Great Gatsby novel or something similar, and they inserted the weather in California is sunny, and they dumped the whole Great Gatsby novel into the prompt, inserted this little sentence about the weather in California, and at the end of the prompt they said, what is the weather like in California? And it has to go back through those 200,000 tokens. It probably already knows Gatsby because it's been trained on that if it's in the public domain data. And it was not able to retrieve it. As you can see, it was not able to retrieve it very easily. Compare that with Gemini 1.5. Did the same thing, needle in a haystack. Let me correct myself straight away. 10 million tokens is not 12 million words. It's 7 million words. I was going the wrong way in my head maths. But have a look at the retrieval here and the successful retrieval. A lot better than Claude 2. I don't think I have the GPT-4 needle in haystack tests to hand, but this is pretty impressive. You can insert something in a video up to 3 hours, 2.8 million tokens, and have 100% successful retrieval. Audio, 22 hours, 2 million tokens, and have 100% successful retrieval. And text, they reckon 99.7% accurate retrieval across 7 million words, 10 million tokens. Cool. That's the big stuff in Gemini 1.5, is that it's got longer context, so you can essentially get it to write a 7 million word book. I don't know why you do that. Or you could have it to run across your life in real time, which is probably more likely. I believe these are really fuzzy maths in my head. I believe that might be close to a few months of your conversation data. So you could have started running that mid last year and ask it, what was I saying in October 2023 related to mowing the lawn? Or when did I last have my haircut? Or what was that argument with my boss about? And it will have access to that if you've dumped that into the entire conversation length prompt. Crazy, crazy stuff. And there's going to be a lot of competition again, I think, with OpenAI trying to match that. They are not close to that at the moment. They're only at 128,000 tokens, and we're comparing that with 1 million tokens. Otherwise, probably not a very interesting read, that paper. Might be better to go straight to the source here, which was the announcement from just a few hours ago. This is Gemini 1.5 announcement. They do have a video comparing the different context windows here, context lengths, and Gemini 1.5 Pro, they're showing 1 million tokens of context length, but in research they go up to 10 million tokens. Kind of cool. They've got various videos on this, chasing around the Apollo transcripts. Really looking forward to the text, image, and video, text, image, audio, and video capabilities on this one. I have already applied for jumping in here for testing. I don't think it's going to be really worth it. I'm not in a rush to get that. But they are only releasing to academics and developers on application at the moment. Some of these demonstrations are extraordinary. I'll let you watch that one in your own time. Enhanced performance for sure. They're spending a lot of time on testing, like OpenAI, really concerned with what can go wrong in this. I know I was just making fun of the media that were doing the sky is falling style stuff there, but this is something that's really important. So these guys apply red teaming, which is people sitting down trying to break the model, trying to apply different security processes to it. Often they'll grab people in experts in various fields, very niche fields. For GPT-4, they grab people in chemistry, in defense, which was kind of cool to see, in various sciences, including physics. They had literature people. I've documented this in full, actually, on my lifearchitect.ai/GPT-4 page. Where is it? We had people in medicine. We had specialists in bias for gender and safety or hate speech, education, economics, policy and national security, video editing, legal, military, including cybersecurity, and translations. One of the ways that we're seeing these models being broken is that if you ask it a question in a rare language, or even a common language outside of English, it's more likely to give you what you want, that the checks aren't there in the same way that they are in English, which is surprising to me, but that's certainly what's happening, that they've been able to say, generate a recipe for a bomb or give me this particular way of conducting terrorist activities, and people are getting results by using another language. Am I allowed even to say that on YouTube? Maybe not. All right, what have we got here from Juiced? Going forward, the AI jargon is getting out of hand. Would you write a starter's handbook? Maybe for schools. Yeah. I try and use no jargon in the memo. I do have lifearchitect.ai/definitions, which is getting quite old now, but it gives you some plain English definitions for everything from tokens to parameters to temperatures, which is becoming less and less necessary as we've got reinforcement learning from human feedback. The temperature setting is mattering less and less. If you want to know more about that, Johns Hopkins just released a paper on testing models and getting the same results for a temperature of 1.0 versus a temperature of 0. Crazy. More definitions in here. The other place to look for plain English, of course, is the memo. And I do also have the ChatGPT prompt book, which has now over 3 million views, used in many educational institutions. You can get that by clicking in the right-hand sidebar in my lifearchitect.ai pages. But this will step you through how to write prompts or how to play with prompts, because we're still not prescriptive on how to do this. There's no right or wrong way, but these are some examples of how you could write something for getting better at prompt crafting. And in the last live stream, we used Gandalf to play around with prompt crafting, which was a really fun game. Here's another question from Saskia. Is Google Gemini 1.5 and OpenAI Sora moving up your timeline to AGI? That's a really good question. I don't know yet. I probably spend a bit more time on that before I analyze it. And in this case, I've gone live within an hour of finding out about Gemini 1.5. So I don't have an answer right now, but I will very soon. This is our countdown to AGI. The last update, you're right, was January 2024, bringing us to 65% for DeepMind alpha geometry. And that's been reinforced by the fact that Google are using that internally to fix their code. There's more news here about Google having an internal Gemini model called Goose, Google Goose, which actually helps them write code rather than fix code. So there's a separate model available inside Google, and also reinforced by Google's online AI feedback. Google have been absolutely prolific over the last 30 days of this year. We're only a month and a half into 2024, and these guys are going nuts, I think is the right word. Thanks, Sean, for your clarification of the Anthropic's testing of needle in a haystack. I definitely remember my example of Gatsby and inserting that particular piece of text, but I'll have to have another look. Awesome. All right, where are we? We're 33 minutes into good times here. We're still grey and rainy out there. How is it where you are? What would you like to hear from next? I use Gemini Ultra day to day now, including having it generate the HTML for one of the tables in my report. My Gemini report was re-released to the public. It's available for free right now. lifearchitect.ai/Gemini/report. And I will take you through this briefly. It's this table here, the DeepMind Alpha systems. The descriptions here were summarized by GPT-4, but this bootstrap table, I didn't really want to convert from the image above, so it was completely formatted by, in this case, Gemini Pro. You don't really need to be using Ultra for that, but it's a copy of the table inside the PDF, and you can get to that by clicking download PDF report. This is the final version. This was given to full subscribers of the memo in September last year for the early release version, and I've just updated this for everything we know based on the technical report. But just to tie everything back here, on page 10 is a summary of all of DeepMind's alpha systems. So you will have heard of AlphaGo, which played the board game Go and beat the world champion Lee Sedol. And then more recently, hopefully you've heard of Alpha Geometry. AlphaFold is a big one. AlphaZero as well. It's another one that you may hear about. This was all written in plain text, essentially, inside of Google Docs, which I use for writing these reports. And then to get this into HTML, I thought I don't really want to sit there and put everything inside a TD and nest it in a TR, and then I have to do all my formatting. So that was a really interesting use case for Gemini. You could do the same thing with ChatGPT, and you could potentially do the same thing for any of the models. You could use Llama 2 and see how it goes with this one. Kind of fun. Juiced is asking questions from the 1980s here. If you could create a new school system, how would you implement AI having total carte blanche? Woo! I've been saying for quite a while now, education is over. If you want to read more about that, lifearchitect.ai/roadmap. And it actually contains this quote: education as we know it is over. This is 2024. Certainly we were talking about education being over in a way with Elon Musk's school, and I provided analysis of that a very long time ago. How long ago, Alan? It's so long ago that I'm going to have to go and check the PDF here. Yeah, it's this one. November 2017, I was analysing Elon's school there with the help of their principal, Joshua Dunn, who released some amazing stuff. Some of it is available to the public. But the big flags here was that Elon, even back in 2016, the founding of the school was 2014. Even then, he was saying, we're not going to teach languages because these guys are going to have Neuralink. This is a decade ago. We're not going to worry about handwriting because these guys will have the equivalent of telepathy. I know that's a bit of a fuzzy word, but let's say communicating via thought, even faster than typing, even faster than speaking, which is 3.5 times faster than typing. He went, don't even bother with that. No handwriting. And in fact, minimal computer usage, which was a surprise to me. That was the other thing. No tablets at all. And then they did have MacBooks, but it wasn't like they were sitting there for 7 hours a day on the MacBooks. It was something that they used as an auxiliary for conversation. So they would really prioritize these ethical conversations, which, as you can see, are pretty important today. There were some other things that he did. No homework worksheets at all. They do perhaps have things to do at home, meaningful things to do at home, like conversations with parents, thinking through problems, coming up with 6 different models for your next robot. But there were no homework worksheets. In grade 7, when I was in primary school, we called them contracts, which to me just reminds me of horrendous times like jail, right? You have to complete your contract before you come into school tomorrow. And they were dry as more child-driven. So the children, back in 2017 or back in 2014, the design of this school were designing both the curriculum as well as, and I hope I'm getting this right with Ad Astra, I might be confusing it with another school, as well as interviewing the teachers and hiring the teachers and interviewing potential students and admitting new students based on the interview. That is very human and very advanced if you can compare that with today's education system outside of these innovative schools. Ad Astra also got rid of science, technology, engineering, and maths as a focus. All of our schools here in Australia are obsessed with STEM or STEAM. They add arts in the middle there. This is more about abstract reasoning, strat, ethics, decision-making, cooperation. We mentioned no languages at all. They didn't teach second languages. I understand that having a second language is great for brain elasticity. Personally, I spent a long time studying or speaking Mandarin during my time in China. The immersive way is the best way to do it. But Elon could already see what was happening with brain-machine interfaces. Less handwriting, less screen time, and we've come a lot further in the last decade. But this is what they were doing a decade ago. So my answer to you here is education is over. I don't know what this looks like. It probably right now looks like strapping on an Apple Vision Pro and talking with people in 100 different countries. And using AI at every step of the way. In the next edition of the memo, which is coming up, I'm going to be talking about the very first Ivy League Bachelors of Science in Engineering in Artificial Intelligence. That is apparently the correct way of saying it. Offered by the University of Pennsylvania. Big favourite of mine. Marty Seligman teaches there or taught there, and it's a great university. It's one of our Ivy Leagues. Wharton Business School, of course, is inside UPenn, and some of the professors there are quite famous, quite well known now for their embracing of GPT and AI in general. In fact, they've made it mandatory to use AI for some units of the Wharton Business School inside UPenn. I'll also be talking about my work inside education, GPT-4, when it came out last year, was specifically trained in English, of course, and in Icelandic, which is, I don't want to say a dying language, but I think that is the formal way of saying it, that they were very concerned about losing that language and culture. So the government of Iceland formed a partnership with OpenAI, and GPT-4 is very, very good at Icelandic. So I was hired by the, let me see if I can get this name right, Icelandic Center for Artificial Intelligence, ICAI, to design their executive master in artificial intelligence. It was the world's first executive master in AI. And if you're a full subscriber to the memo, you can actually go and watch my opening lecture for the ICAI, specifically about GPT-4 and Icelandic. I think it's phenomenal that we are keeping these languages alive. Not just Icelandic, but imagine applying that to our Australian Indigenous languages here. And if you're not an Australian, you may not know just how many languages we have here. Let's see what we can do. There's a beautiful coloured map that Qantas have started, or maybe it's Virgin have started showing, because we get more and more proud of this heritage as our social justice takes hold. This is a 1024 image. Google recently changed their image search that you can't pull the high-res image anymore. You actually have to go to the site. This is the distribution of Aboriginal tribes around Australia, and you may even have more languages than this. The numbers I've seen are measured in the hundreds, but imagine saving all of these languages, which in many cases are not written down. They're all verbal, they've been passed down through hundreds or thousands, and if you talk to some people, tens of thousands of years. That's how they've kept their culture and their history alive. Imagine using AI to save that. Well, you don't have to imagine, it's being done right now. One of the famous models for that one is Meta AI's No Language Left Behind model, which grabbed 200 unique languages. They did not do any of the Aboriginal, Australian Aboriginal languages, but they've grabbed low resources language, wow, 8:44 a.m. here. Low resource languages like Asturian, Luganda, Urdu, and more. And you can read more about this. This is quite an old model comparatively now, but gives you a bit of insight into how they explored waking up dead and dying languages and making sure that we can keep those. Deep Sea Nomad looking for an initiative to preserve Saconian here in Greece. I'm sure that we'll be saving as many languages as possible, and it won't really need human involvement. The Icelandic and English partnership was, I reckon, a lot of work. There would have been business analysts, there would have been people grabbing real paper documents from archives going back 100 years, or more, sorry, hundreds of years for Iceland. We only have about 100 years of history here in Australia. And making sure that GPT-4 was trained on that properly. I think more of that's going to be automated, and of course AI will be helping us out with that. You may have heard that Andrej Karpathy has, after a year at OpenAI, decided to leave. He originally left Tesla in February 2023 and started with OpenAI. And he spent a good year there working on different alignment problems. Very, very smart guy. He's about 3 years younger than me, and just doing incredible things hands-on in the weeds, in the nitty-gritty of AI. I'd love to know what he's up to. I do talk about this in the next edition of the memo. Make sure you're in there. Great. I will aim to have an update to that AGI or not within the next couple of days. I do need to have a closer look. at what's going on there. Recommend that you read this Google DeepMind Gemini report. If you're not playing with Gemini Ultra day to day, you need to be. That's really kind of cool. That's a lot of fun, that model. Any other queries before we wrap up for this morning? Today's presentation or today's live stream specifically about Gemini Pro 1.5. They're pretty excited to release this. The only differences are that it was trained for a lot cheaper. They used compute that allowed them to do this quicker and with less TPUs. So I wonder if it was done at half the cost of Gemini 1.0. And the other big factor is that they've increased the context window from 32,000 tokens to 10 million tokens in research. Thanks for your query, Saskia. I don't have an answer on this one. This is about Ilya Sutskever, who's at OpenAI. The last I saw was that in a live interview, the CEO of OpenAI said he didn't know what his chief scientist was doing or whether his chief scientist still worked for the company. Now, that's going to be a pretty disappointing response, but Ilya, not sure what he's up to. I certainly feel that there was some pretty crazy dramas going on and some impacts on, obviously, his role there. He could work anywhere. He was hired by OpenAI in around 2016, I think it was, for $1.9 million a year, salary, not equity. He was given $1.9 million cash. And I'm sure Google would like to hear from him. In our current competitive environment, it's really going to be about who can you headhunt, who can you steal from another company, and then what IP can you unlock from them? Because wouldn't it be cool to know what secret source OpenAI has? What have they done differently for ChatGPT and GPT-4 that no one else is able to get right? And when I say no one else, I mean not Meta, not Amazon, not Inflection, not Baidu there with Ernie, not Meta with Llama by way of example, not Mistral. No one's been able to copy the magic of ChatGPT and GPT-4 and the polish, whatever they've inserted there, the manual processing perhaps that they put in place or some other fancy piece of magic, probably created by Greg Brockman there as their, what is his role now? Is he still president? Is what differentiates them from every other AI lab, and every other LLM is trying to catch up still with GPT-4. We have bigger models here, but we don't yet have better models. Awesome. We've got a simple question here. Let's grab this one. What will be the process to train an LLM since most Australian Aboriginal languages have scant, if any, written history? Well, we already are training on audio and video, and I'm not just talking about transcripts. GPT-4 was trained on YouTube transcripts, the same with Gemini, but we can also listen to intonation, we can listen to intent, we can listen to whatever else we hear in verbal and audio. You can read more about that in the Google DeepMind Gemini 1.0 report, where they spend time talking about how they took WAV files essentially and are able to hear what's going on, not just the words, once again, not just the words, and they can even get down to the non-verbals. So all it would take is perhaps grabbing what already exists in recorded interviews, audio interviews, or going and sitting down and speaking with these guys. If we're getting science fiction-y, and I love getting science fiction-y, maybe we can just strap Apple Vision Pros or equivalents to these guys' heads out in the bush, and they can continue with their customs, their oral tradition, speaking about and reliving and recreating their history, their spiritual understanding, but that goes right the way through to their leadership understanding. In my master's at Flinders University on gifted education, we even talked about the way that they measure giftedness, and it's a lot different to how we measure giftedness which, if we're using plain English, might just be high ability. For giftedness, in most of the Western world, we talk about intelligence meeting certain benchmarks, including IQ. In other parts of the world, certainly in more tribal parts of the world, including the New Zealand Maoris, the Australian Aborigines, they have different ways of measuring giftedness. And off the top of my head, it included leadership skills, it included things like cooking and crafts, and you had people who were top performers in that, which is obviously a lot different to how we do things here in most of the Western world. Awesome. Let's see if we can pick up this query from Bacon Sky. Oh, I think we've already answered this, but let's try it again. When will we reach 1 billion trillion parameter models? We've already got them. We've had them for a while. GPT-4, 1.76 billion, 1760 billion parameters, or 1.76 trillion parameters. Ernie, 1 trillion parameters. There are actually a couple of other trillion parameter models out of China. I don't show them here because they haven't been proven. From my conversations with Baidu, this one is definitely 1 trillion and it is definitely a dense model. Gemini Ultra, 1.5 trillion parameters, and I will definitely be live streaming the Amazon Olympus 2 trillion parameter launch sometime this year, as well as whatever Meta gives us. It might be Llama 3 hits 1 trillion, it might be another model from Meta AI gives us a couple of trillion parameters. Pretty exciting. Oh, tokens. Okay. When will we reach 1 trillion? Oh, okay. For context window. Because we're already training on trillions and trillions of tokens. Off the top of my head, maybe we shouldn't do off the top of my head. That's how I get in trouble, especially this early in the morning. lifearchitect.ai/models table. So if we're talking about tokens trained, we've got a lot of highlighted models here with guesses. The tokens trained are measured in billions, but we can easily convert those to trillions. The mixtural model might have been 8 trillion tokens. Gemini Ultra, 30 trillion tokens, including repeated tokens. Ernie 4, perhaps 20 trillion tokens trained. So if you convert this back to words, that might be 17 trillion words trained. Absolutely massive. GPT-4 is what I'm after. Oh, let's do Palm 2, trained on 3.6 trillion tokens. GPT-4 here, trained on 13 trillion tokens. But then what is their short-term memory, their working memory, their context window? We're only at 10 million as of today with Ultra 1.5. I have documented, though, the fact that there are some unlimited context window models. So I'm at lifearchitect.ai/GPT-4 here, GPT-4, and we've got a context window viz. All right, let's go to Gemini. lifearchitect.ai/Gemini. And let's go straight to our context window here. This is my viz from last year. Compare Gemini with its 32,000 tokens and GPT-4 with its 32,000 tokens. Gemini 1.5 would not fit on that chart, but have a look at that yellow bar there. Infinite context for streaming LLM and RNNs, I believe includes Rourke V, but I could be wrong there. That's my pronunciation of RWKV. Yeah, I'm wrong there, but certainly streaming LLMs and RNNs, which we're seeing a lot more of, recurrent neural networks, have infinitely long context windows. I don't think this is as much of a concern as other people. I don't really need a very, very long context window because we can use retrieval augmented generation, RAG, to access. So if you wanted to apply this to your life and have this in a contact lens on your retina or some sort of AI thing on your body that's recording everything that happens in conversation, you can store that in a database and just access it as needed. I don't really see a necessity for having a 10 million token context window, but that might be like Bill Gates saying no one's going to need more than, 640 kilobytes of memory, which he denies saying, by the way. Yeah, compare that we've got short-term memory, which is these context windows, and also long-term memory. And I think for day-to-day, it's okay to just shove this into long-term memory like a little database and then retrieve from it as needed. Saskia's asking about Sam's $7 trillion investment seeking. I do definitely talk about that in the next edition of the memo. If you don't have the memo, you need it. lifearchitect.ai/memo. Someone called out to me just yesterday and said that, did I know that the memo is one of Substack's best sellers? It has the bestseller badge on it and has had that for a couple of years, apparently. No, I did not know, but now I know. If you're joining up to the memo, there's a free version, there's a pay what you want version, and our standard version is $300 a year, which is $25 a month. Love to have you in there. There's my bestseller badge. But we push this out to pretty much everyone that matters. Got more than half of the Fortune 500 companies in here. We've got massive governments in here. And they've certainly told me that they use this for their policy design, including policy reform. It's also mainly designed for you. AI that matters as it happens in plain English. And you'll get a bit more detail than you get from these live streams. It's just that these live streams, these live streams are usually designed to be as fast as possible. And we did get in here within about 8 hours of the Gemini 1.5 Ultra launch. You have a couple of minutes to cover the recent Sam in the UAE talking sandbox AI, AGI training. No, I don't have oversight of that. I know that he was speaking about GPT-5, comparing GPT-5 with, I don't have a phone that I can use as an example, but he was saying we're basically at the level of having an old black and white cell phone. Let's say a Nokia, what did we have then? A 3210. Do you guys remember those? Huge when I was in university, 2001. Nokia 3210. I had the Motorola D160 before that, which was a big brick with an antenna that you pull out. We've definitely come a long way since then. He was saying maybe we're at the level of a Nokia 3210 that can play Snake, but we want to get to the iPhone 15 and iPhone 16, and that he thinks, and maybe it's a truism, that GPT-5 is going to be smarter than GPT-4. All right, how exciting is that? Not exciting at all. If you want to see that in real life, lifearchitect.ai/IQ testing AI, IQ-testing AI. And I've got a viz here about how these models have been getting smarter and smarter. In this case, based on the MMLU benchmark, but we could measure it on pretty much any benchmark here. GPT-2 started out not that smart, wouldn't even compete with an average human. GPT-3, that is the time that I started playing with Lita and left the field of human intelligence and prodigy research, because just talking with GPT-3 was a more exciting experience than talking with a prodigy. I know that sounds really harsh, but I always want to be on the bleeding edge, and I was finding that the most performant brain out there was not my 8-year-old with an obsession of quantum physics, or even my 5-year-old abstract artist who had her own gallery showings. It was, in fact, the GPT-3 model. You can see that with the Lita AI experiments where we talk with Lita back in 2020 and 2021. That's GPT-3. Instruct GPT and Chat GPT gave us a 59% uplift on the MMLU, taking us to 70 on that benchmark. GPT-4 is performing even higher than that, 86.4, and the human expert is at 89.8. Gemini, when we did the 1.0 tests for Gemini Ultra, we used what they called 32 pass, which is different to 32 shot. I explained the difference in that live stream. They were using a bit of a prompt hack, and they actually achieved a score of 90.04, not shown here. I'm expecting GPT 4.5 and GPT 5 to get us well into the 90s of IQ. And there you go. There's a summary of what Sam said in more words and with more detail and with a visualization. I do have a very recent visualization that I'd love to show you. It will be a part of the next edition of the memo, but I worked on this just the other day because I wanted to see it for myself. Here it is. It's the total output of GPT-3, and you were with me with the Lita AI days back in 2020, 2021, versus the output of Chat GPT. What do you think the difference is? Here it is. Total Chat GPT output worldwide. GPT-3 was outputting 4.5 billion words of new content every day. It's about 70,000 tokens a second. ChatGPT is about 20x that, 100 billion words per day. That's 1.5 million tokens per second. No wonder they're having problems with scaling and getting their data centers right. I know we've got Greg in there, the former CTO of Stripe, so he's got a lot of experience with scaling and handling massive, massive transactions, but it makes me feel a little bit more forgiving for the performance issues that we've seen with ChatGPT. It is thinking and conceptualizing 100 billion words per day. OpenAI's CEO compared this with the human output, and the human output was a lot bigger, but this is brand new content that's being written and recorded. The human content, I think, included speech, conversation, so I don't know if it counts. What you're looking at here is really, truly extraordinary. I've probably used those words only a couple of times, but this really is exciting to have a brain. Some people have called it an artificial general intelligence. Microsoft's paper called it sparks of AGI, or a first look at AGI. This is what we've been waiting for those of us who've been around for quite a few decades. This is the stuff that we read about in science fiction. And here it is, brain in a jar, speaking 70 million words a minute, or typing 70 million words a minute. Awesome. Yes, Paulo, we've spoken about the problems with MMLU and the error rates there. I've probably got something on the website about that. Love keeping you guys updated up to the minute with this launch of Gemini 1.5, less compute, bigger short-term memory or working memory. The ML term for that is context window, and probably a lot smarter. Certainly in the performance benchmarks, they have somehow got it a lot smarter than Pro, and in some cases smarter than the huge Ultra model. I'll be back next time I'm excited about something. We got 2 live streams this week. I'll see you soon. Jump into the memo. The next edition is going to be a cracker. I'm halfway through that already. Then it'll go out to the editor and you'll see it in your box very soon. Thanks for joining. See you soon.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Superintelligence is unfolding at lightning pace. Read my industry-grade analysis of AI that matters as it happens in plain English, the memo.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get the inside look as AI models are embodied into humanoids, AI's IQ increases to nearly perfect, and bleeding edge use cases expand to the entire world.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
Editions are sent to subscribers at Fortune 500s, major governments, and people like you. lifearchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.